My name is Anna Walker. I am from Jackson City, Mississippi. What I'm about to share with you is beyond extraordinary on a seemingly ordinary morning. My life changed forever after a sudden and fatal medical incident. I experienced death itself and encountered Jesus Christ in his full glory during this incredible near-death experience. He revealed a shocking truth about how the mark of the beast will be implemented. The vision I received was not only vivid, but also deeply urgent, a message for humanity to prepare for what lies ahead. Today I share this testimony, hoping to open your eyes to the reality of what is to come. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning. I had just brewed my coffee and opened the window to let in the cool morning breeze. Life felt peaceful and routine until a sudden, unbearable pain in my chest stopped me in my tracks. I barely managed to call 911 before collapsing to the floor. What happened next is a blur in earthly terms, but crystal clear in the spiritual realm. As my physical body lay lifeless, my soul was transported into a radiant realm where Jesus awaited. This ordinary day became the most extraordinary moment of my existence, a divine encounter that changed everything. The moment I collapsed, the physical world faded into silence. It was as if my body had given up, but my soul was just beginning a journey. I felt myself leaving my body, floating upwards in a state of serene detachment. There was no fear, no pain, only peace. Looking down, I could see paramedics rushing to revive me, their voices muffled, as if coming from a great distance. I was surrounded by a strange yet comforting light. It wasn't like sunlight or any artificial light I'd ever seen. This light had substance. It felt alive. It pulled me gently, guiding me toward what appeared to be a tunnel as I entered. I felt a rush of love so overwhelming that tears, though I had no physical body, seemed to flow. This tunnel wasn't dark or confining. It was expansive and filled with shimmering colors I couldn't have imagined along the way. Memories began to surface, not as fleeting thoughts, but as vivid living moments. I relived my childhood, joys, the laughter of my children, and even the mundane moments that suddenly felt profound. It was as if my entire life played out before me in perfect clarity, each moment connected to a larger purpose I hadn't understood before. As I moved further into the tunnel, the light grew brighter and warmer, enveloping me in an embrace that felt like home. This wasn't a place of judgment, but of understanding. I felt no condemnation, only a deep sense of love and belonging. It was as though I had returned to a place I had always known but forgotten. Suddenly I became aware of presences around me. They weren't people in the traditional sense, but beings of light, each radiating a unique energy of love and compassion. They didn't speak in words, but communicated directly to my soul, conveying messages of encouragement and peace. One of them I instinctively knew was my grandmother. She smiled at me with such warmth that all my earthly worries melted away. The further I traveled, the more I understood that this wasn't just a journey, but a preparation. I was being brought to meet someone, and every fiber of my being knew who it was. The tunnel opened into a vast expanse of light, more radiant and alive than anything I had ever experienced. And there he was, Jesus Christ. His presence was both humbling and empowering. He didn't look like the depictions I'd seen in paintings. He was beyond form and yet familiar. His eyes held infinite understanding, and his love poured over me like a wave, washing away every doubt, fear, and regret. He spoke without words, and yet I understood him perfectly. Anna, he communicated, what you are about to see is a message for my children. It is your mission to share it in that moment. I realized my journey wasn't just about experiencing the divine, but it's about returning with a purpose. What lay ahead would change my understanding of the world forever. After the tunnel of light, I emerged into what I can only describe as the divine realm. It was a place unlike anything on earth. There were no walls, no sky, just an infinite expanse of radiance and life. The air itself seemed to hum with energy, and every particle of light carried a symphony of love. This was not just a place, it was a state of being. As I took in the beauty around me, I realized that this realm was alive. Colors I had never seen before danced in harmony, and music, if it could even be called that, filled the air. It wasn't sound as we know it, but a vibration that resonated deep within my soul. Each note seemed to tell a story, a universal truth that connected everything in this realm. I felt completely known and accepted. Every flaw, every mistake, every triumph of my life was laid bare. Yet I felt no shame. Instead, there was a profound understanding that every part of my journey had a purpose, even the parts I had CP. I soon became aware of beings of light moving toward me. They were not like angels depicted in art, but radiant, sentient entities whose very essence was love. One of them stepped forward, and I immediately recognized her as my mother. She had passed away years ago, but here she was, vibrant and alive, her presence overflowing with joy. She didn't need to speak. Her love enveloped me like a warm embrace. Others appeared, family members, friends, and even people I hadn't known well in life, but had impacted in small, meaningful ways. Each presence brought a message of connection, a reminder of how intertwined our lives are. The most profound moment came when I saw Jesus. His presence was overwhelming in its beauty and power. He was both the humble carpenter and the King of Kings, his glory impossible to describe in earthly terms. His love was a tangible force filling every corner of my being. As he looked at me, I felt a flood of understanding of who I was, why I had lived, and why I was here now. Anna has said without words, "You have been chosen to see what must be shared." His voice resonated, not in my ears, but in my soul. Each word imbued with purpose and urgency. The realm itself seemed to shift as he prepared to show me the vision that would become my mission. The radiant light dimmed slightly, and a new scene began to unfold. It was here, in this divine realm, that Jesus began to reveal the truth about the mark of the beast. As I stood in the radiance of the divine realm, I suddenly became aware of a figure approaching the light. Surrounding him was unlike anything I had ever seen alive, pulsating and full of infinite love. It wasn't just light, it was his essence. This was Jesus Christ. His presence was both A, inspiring and comforting, like encountering the deepest love, and B, the highest authority all at once. He didn't speak in words, yet I understood everything he communicated. His eyes, filled with infinite compassion, seemed to look directly into my soul, seeing everything I had ever done, thought, or felt. Despite knowing my flaws and failures, his gaze was filled with acceptance. There was no condemnation, only a love so profound it made me feel whole, complete, and unconditionally valued. Jesus appeared both human and divine. One moment he was the humble carpenter of Nazareth, with a kind, approachable demeanor. The next, he radiated the majesty of the King of Kings, his light brighter than 1,000 suns. Both aspects of him were equally real and true, and I knew my earthly understanding could only grasp a fragment of his infinite nature. Anahe said, "Not with words, but directly into my being, you are here for a reason. What you are about to see is not for you alone, it is a message for my children, a warning of what is to come." As he spoke, I felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a divine mission. The love emanating from him was matched by an urgency that made my soul tremble. I knew that whatever he was about to reveal would change my life and the lives of many forever. Jesus extended his hand, and though I didn't have a physical body, I felt a connection as real as anything on earth. He led me to a space within the realm that seemed to transform. As we moved, the light around us dimmed slightly, and I sensed a shift in the atmosphere. The radiant beauty of the realm remained, but it was now focused, purposeful. It was here that Jesus began to reveal the vision that would forever alter my understanding of the world. His love and reassurance anchored me as I prepared to witness the truths he would share. Standing beside Jesus, I felt a profound stillness as the vision began. The radiant realm transformed into a series of vivid scenes, each more startling than the last. Jesus was shown me how the mark of the beast would be implemented, a truth so urgent and critical that it made my soul tremble. The first scene was a world consumed by chaos, natural disasters, economic collapses, and political unrest swept across nations. People were desperate for solutions for stability amidst the turmoil. Jesus explained that these events would serve as a catalyst for the introduction of a new global system. The vision shifted, and I saw technology at the heart of this system. Digital currencies replaced physical money, biometric identification became mandatory, and social credit systems governed people's access to basic needs. These innovations were marketed as progress, promising fairness, equality, and security. Yet beneath this veneer of convenience lay a sinister agenda. Jesus showed me how the mark of the beast would integrate these systems. It wasn't just a physical mark or implant, it was a comprehensive system of control. Accepting the mark would mean aligning with the Antichrist's rule, not just economically but spiritually. It was a declaration of allegiance, a choice to reject God's sovereignty. What struck me most was how subtle and deceptive this system would be. It wouldn't appear overtly evil. Instead, it would be framed as a solution to humanity's greatest challenges: poverty, inequality, and climate change. Leaders and even religious figures would endorse it, believing they were acting in humanity's best interest. Jesus emphasized that the mark would not be something people could accept accidentally. It would require a conscious decision to pledge allegiance to the system. However, the societal pressure to comply would be immense. Those who refused would be labeled extremists, conspiracists, and enemies of progress. Families would be divided, friendships severed, and lives destroyed for resisting as the vision continued. I saw the heartbreak of believers who succumbed to the deception. They had prepared physically for challenging times, but failed to build the spiritual discernment needed to recognize the true nature of the mark. Their fear of rejection, hunger, and suffering led them to make a choice that cost them their souls. Jesus turned to me with a look of both sorrow and hope. "Anna," he said, "this is why you must share this message. My children must prepare, not just physically, but spiritually. They must remain steadfast in their faith and trust in me." The vision shifted to a focus on technology, revealing how it would play a pivotal role in implementing the mark of the beast. Jesus showed me a world where technology wasn't just a tool, but a master, a system designed to infiltrate every aspect of human life. I saw the rise of digital currencies, where every transaction was monitored and controlled. People no longer used cash or even traditional bank accounts. Instead, said their financial lives were tied to a centralized digital system. At first, it seemed like progress, convenient, secure, and efficient. But the control it granted to the governing powers was absolute. Biometric identification was the next layer. Fingerprints, facial recognition, and even DNA data were required to access healthcare, employment, and education. These measures were presented as necessary for securing security and public safety. However, they stripped individuals of privacy and autonomy, creating a society where every move was tracked. Social credit systems became the final piece of the puzzle. People were scored based on their behavior, beliefs, and compliance with the system. A high score granted privileges, while a low score led to exclusion. Refusing to participate wasn't just inconvenient, it made life nearly impossible. Jesus showed me how these systems were interconnected, forming the infrastructure for the mark. They were tools, not the mark itself, but they conditioned people to accept total control. The convenience and benefits they offered made the idea of resisting seem irrational. As the vision unfolded, Jesus revealed how the mark of the beast would be marketed to humanity. It wouldn't come with horns and fire, but with promises of peace, unity, and progress. The system would appear to be the solution to the world's greatest problems. I saw leaders from all walks of life, politicians, scientists, and even religious figures advocating for this new system. They spoke of a world without poverty, where resources were distributed fairly and conflict was replaced by harmony. It sounded like a utopia, but Jesus made it clear that this was a deception. Beneath the surface of these promises was a trap. Accepting the mark would mean surrendering not just freedom, but one's soul. The system would demand total allegiance, requiring individuals to reject God's authority and embrace the Antichrist's rule. Those who resisted would be marginalized, unable to buy, sell, or participate in society. Yet, Jesus assured me that those who stood firm in their faith would be supported by His grace. The vision shifted once more, and I found myself witnessing the immense societal pressure that would be placed on individuals to conform. Jesus showed me scenes of people being coerced, not through overt force, but through subtle manipulation and overwhelming social influence. I saw families sitting around dinner tables discussing the new system. Some argued passionately about how the mark was essential for survival, while others pleaded not to take it, warning of its true spiritual consequences. These moments were heartbreaking because they revealed how deeply divided households would become. Children would question their parents' choices, spouses would turn against each other, and friendships would crumble. The media played a crucial role in amplifying this pressure. Television screens and social media platforms were filled with stories of how the mark had improved lives, ended hunger, and created peace. Those who resisted were portrayed as dangerous extremists, selfishly holding back humanity's progress. News anchors and influencers demonized them, calling them conspiracists and accusing them of spreading fear in workplaces, schools, and public spaces. Compliance was not just encouraged, it was demanded. People without the mark found themselves unable to access even basic necessities like food, healthcare, and transportation. Their faces were plastered on digital billboards, warning others of the dangers of non-compliance. The public was encouraged to report anyone who refused the mark, creating an atmosphere of mistrust and paranoia. What struck me most was the subtlety of this coercion. It wasn't just about survival, it was about belonging. Humans are social creatures, and the thought of being ostracized, of living as an outcast, was unbearable for many. They feared isolation more than they feared the mark's spiritual implications. Jesus turned to me, His face filled with compassion and sorrow. "Sorrow, Anna," He said, "this is why my children must prepare now. They must strengthen their faith and find their identity in me, not in the world. Only then will they have the courage to stand firm." I watched as underground communities of believers formed, supporting one another through this persecution. They shared resources, worshipped in secret, and encouraged each other to remain faithful. These groups weren't driven by fear, but by love and unwavering trust in God. While their lives were difficult, their spirits were unbroken. The scene left an indelible mark on me. The pressure to conform would be relentless, but those who clung to their ways would find strength in their connection to God and each other as the vision unfolded. Jesus emphasized a crucial truth. The mark of the beast was not just a physical mark or technological implant. It was a deeply spiritual choice, a pledge of allegiance to the Antichrist and a rejection of God. I saw individuals standing in line to receive the mark, their faces filled with a mixture of hope and fear. For many, this was just another mundane task, a bureaucratic necessity to access food, healthcare, or employment. But Jesus showed me what they could not see, the spiritual consequences of their decision. Each person who accepted the mark made a deliberate choice, even if they didn't fully understand its implications. It wasn't something they could take by accident or under duress. Their decision reflected a willingness to align with the system's values, which stood in direct opposition to God's sovereignty. Jesus revealed the spiritual battle happening behind the scenes. Angels and demons fought over souls, each decision tipping the balance. Those who chose the mark turned away from the light of God, their connection to Him severed. It wasn't an immediate punishment, but a gradual hardening of their hearts, making it increasingly difficult for them to return to the truth. On the other hand, those who refused the mark faced immense hardship but radiated an inner peace and strength that could only come from God. They clung to their faith, knowing that their choice, though painful, was eternally significant. Jesus' voice filled my soul with clarity. "Enemy children, must understand that this is not about survival on earth, but salvation for eternity. They must choose me, even when it costs them everything. I saw how the mark would test the very core of human faith. It wasn't just about resisting a physical mark, but standing firm in the face of overwhelming pressure to deny God. This spiritual battle was the true essence of the mark of the beast, and understanding this was vital for those who sought to remain faithful. The next part of the vision was both chilling and inspiring. Jesus showed me the rise of the Antichrist, a figure so charismatic and persuasive that he captivated the world. He appeared at a time of unprecedented global crisis, offering solutions that seemed miraculous. This leader wasn't immediately identifiable as evil. In fact, he was seen as a savior. He spoke of unity, peace, and progress. Addressing the deep fears and desires of humanity, people of all backgrounds flocked to him, mesmerized by his vision for a better world. Even some religious leaders supported him, believing he was sent to heal the divisions of humanity. But Jesus revealed the truth behind this facade. The Antichrist power was not his own, but came from a dark and deceptive source. He used lies cloaked in half-truths to manipulate the masses, offering them a false sense of hope. His ultimate goal was to lead humanity away from God and into spiritual bondage. The Antichrist system was designed to control every aspect of life. He promised fairness and equality, but delivered oppression. Those who resisted were not just excluded, but actively persecuted. The world celebrated him as a hero, unable to see the chains he was placing around their souls. Jesus' sorrow was palpable as he spoke. Many of my children will be deceived because they do not know my voice. They will follow this leader thinking they are doing good, but they will be lost. Warn them. Anna, teach them to deceive. This revelation filled me with both urgency and resolve. The Antichrist would be a master of deception, but his power was limited. Those who remained faithful to God would see through his lies and resist even when it cost them everything. 12. The role of believers, strength in faith. 600 words. In the final scenes of this part of the vision, Jesus showed me the role of believers during the time of the mark of the beast. These individuals were not extraordinary by worldly standards, but their faith made them unshakable. I saw small groups of believers gathering in secret, worshiping God despite the risks they shared. Food, prayed together, and supported one another. In practical and spiritual ways, these communities were marked by love, not fear. Fear, they trusted God to provide for their needs, even as they were excluded from society. Jesus showed me how their faith inspired others. Some who had initially accepted the mark began to question their decision, moved by the courage and peace of these believers. Though it was rare, a few even turned back to God, repenting and rejecting the mark, despite the consequences. These believers weren't without struggles. They faced hunger, persecution, and isolation, but Jesus assured me that his grace would be sufficient for them. He would strengthen their spirits, guide their steps, and fill them with a peace that surpassed all understanding. Anna, Jesus said, "Tell my children that I will never leave them. They may feel abandoned by the world, but I am with them always." The vision ended with a profound sense of hope. Though the times ahead would be difficult, the faith of believers would shine like a beacon in the darkness, leading others to the truth. The vision took a dramatic turn, filling me with a sense of awe and hope that outweighed the fear and despair I had witnessed earlier. Jesus showed me the final stages of the spiritual battle, the moment of his ultimate victory. The forces of darkness, led by the Antichrist, appeared, powerful and overwhelming at first, spreading their influence across the world. Yet as Jesus stood beside me, I felt an unshakable certainty that their power was fleeting. I saw the heavens open and a light more radiant than anything I had experienced poured forth. This wasn't just light, it was the presence of God, his glory descending upon the earth. The armies of heaven followed, led by Christ himself, who now revealed his full authority as the King of Kings. His appearance was magnificent, his robe glowing with purity and his eyes blazing with righteous fire. The forces of the Antichrist crumbled in his presence, Their deception, which had ensnared so many, was exposed for what it truly was. People who had been blinded by lies fell to their knees, either in repentance or in despair. Those who had resisted the mark stood triumphant, their faith vindicated by the undeniable reality of Christ's return. Jesus turned to me and spoke with a voice that resonated through every fiber of my being. "Anna, tell my children that this victory is certain. Though the trials will be great, they are temporary. Those who stand firm in faith will share in my triumph and receive rewards beyond their imagination." The scene shifted to a glorious new earth, where peace and joy reigned. The faithful lived in harmony, free from the burdens of sin, suffering, and fear. This was the promise of eternal life, fulfilled, a reality that made every sacrifice worthwhile. As the vision began to conclude, Jesus conveyed a message of profound urgency. His voice, though filled with love, carried the weight of divine authority. "Anna," he said, "my children must prepare now, not just for the trials ahead, but for eternity. The time is short, and the choices they make today will shape their futures." I was shown scenes of people living their daily lives oblivious to the spiritual battle unfolding around them. They were consumed by work, entertainment, and the distractions of the world. Jesus' sorrow was evident as he explained how many were unprepared for the deception that lay ahead. "Spiritual preparation is key," he continued. "My children must deepen their faith, learn my word, and seek my guidance in all things. They must learn to discern truth from deception, for the enemy will use even the smallest doubts to lead them astray." The vision shifted to show believers who had taken these words to heart. They gathered in small groups, studying the Bible, praying fervently, and encouraging one another. These individuals were not immune to hardship, but their faith made them resilient. They relied on God's strength, not their own, and this dependence carried them through the darkest times. Jesus also emphasized practical preparation. He showed believers stockpiling resources not out of fear, but as a means to support their families and others in need. These actions were rooted in faith and wisdom, not panic. Finally, he stressed the importance of spreading. As the vision ended, Jesus delivered one final message, a call to action for all who would hear this testimony. "Anna," he said, "this is not a message of fear, but of hope. My children must know that while difficult times are coming, I am with them always. They are never alone." He reminded me that the trials ahead were not without purpose. Every challenge would refine the faithful, strengthening their spirit, deepening their trust in God. The choices people made during these times would determine their eternal destinies, but His grace would be sufficient for all who sought Him earnestly. Jesus showed me glimpses of individuals who remained faithful despite immense persecution. Their lives, though filled with hardship, radiated peace and joy. These were the overcomers, the ones who stood firm in their faith and inspired others to do the same. "Tell them," Jesus continued, "that I have already overcome the world. The enemy's power is temporary, and my victory is assured. Those who trust in me will see my glory and share in my eternal kingdom." Finally, I felt myself being drawn back to my body. The divine realm faded, replaced by the familiar sights and sounds of the physical world. As I awoke, I knew I'd been forever changed. My mission was clear: to share this testimony and warn others of the spiritual battle ahead. I speak these words not to create fear, but to inspire faith and preparation. The mark of the beast is coming, but so is Christ's return. Hold fast to Him, for His love and grace will sustain you through all things. As I returned to my body, gasping for air and feeling the heaviness of the physical world once more, the urgency of my mission consumed me. My encounter with Jesus wasn't just a personal experience. It was a divine calling to share what I had seen with as many people as possible. The weight of responsibility was immense, but His words remained clear in my mind. "Tell my children, warn them, prepare them." At first, I struggled to process everything. How could I explain the indescribable? How could I put into words the depth of the visions and the magnitude of the truths revealed? But Jesus had given me reassurance, and I knew He would guide me. I began to write, each word flowing as if it were dictated by the Holy Spirit. I started with close friends and family, sharing my testimony. Some listened with wide eyes and open hearts, while others dismissed it as a hallucination or imagination. It hurt to see doubt in the eyes of those I loved, but Jesus' words echoed in my heart. The truth will find those who are ready to receive it. As the days passed, I felt compelled to reach a larger audience. I began speaking at local churches, community gatherings, and anywhere people were willing to listen. I didn't use fear to motivate them, but shared the profound love and hope Jesus had shown me. I emphasized the importance of spiritual preparation, urging everyone to deepen their faith, seek God's guidance, and discern the truth in these deceptive times. I also warned about the subtle dangers of modern conveniences, digital currencies, biometric systems, and the increasing reliance on technology. These tools weren't inherently evil, but were paving the way for a system of total control. I explained that the real danger lay in spiritual choice. These systems would demand allegiance to the Antichrist or faith in God. Not everyone was receptive. Some mocked me, while others accused me of spreading fear and conspiracy theories. But for every skeptic, there was someone whose eyes filled with tears of understanding. These moments kept me going, reminding me that even one soul saved was worth the effort. I also felt a deep connection to other believers who shared similar visions and experiences. Together, we formed a network of faith, supporting one another in our mission to prepare the world for what was to come. We prayed for courage, wisdom, and the strength to stand firm in our convictions through it all. I leaned on Jesus' promise, "I am with you always." His presence was my anchor, guiding me through challenges and filling me with peace. Even in the face of opposition, I knew that my testimony wasn't just a warning, but a beacon of hope, a reminder that no matter how dark the times ahead might seem, His light would always prevail. Now, as I continue to share this message, I feel His love working through me. I've seen lives transformed, faith renewed, and communities strengthened. My journey is far from over, but I know that everything I do is for His glory and His kingdom. To anyone hearing my story, I say this: take these warnings seriously, but do not be afraid. Jesus is with us, and His victory is certain. Hold fast to your faith, prepare your heart, and trust in His promises. The path ahead may be difficult, but it leads to eternal life, a life beyond anything we can imagine.